Brazil had been experiencing some UAP issues. And in some cases, these UAP or UFO encounters were disruptive to the local population.
So
Does that make sense? I
yeah,
can try to get another
yeah,
example
no,
if you need me to.
no, I think that's pretty good. The thing with you is that if we get stuck on so many rabbit holes, we're going to be here for like 36 straight hours. You know what
Brother,
I mean?
I know.
There's so much here.
Yeah.
But when you
Well, you're
so
asking me about intelligence, right? So it's a lifelong journey. It's,
oh my God, yeah. Yeah, and it's like, you don't at the beginning, you don't know the scope of it at all. You
Right.
you just realize, okay, we are all right, I'm being told that there's some real shit out there that we can't really identify. So, yes, that's a meaning of life crisis potentially, but you don't know how much, what the volume is, how many of these alleged sightings are even real, and then you start getting pulled on or pulled into the actual intelligence. And in your book, the description of the Colares meeting feels like a fucking Team America meetup because you
Yeah.
get pulled into this skiff with legends of the game, Hal Puthoff, Jaque Vallée, Eric Davis, I think, was in there.
Well, that was actually a dinner. That was not in a skiff, believe it or not.
It wasn't in a
It was
skiff.
not in a skiff. Negative. No, it was
So
actually.
you're just sitting in an Olive Garden talking about this.
Well, not an Olive Garden, but no. And it was the room had been fairly secured.
Okay.
But we weren't sharing U.S. secrets. It was somebody else, a foreign national, that was sharing their experiences with us. So technically, it's not classified, right? It's just them telling us. Classified information only applies to information that is U.S. government derived. That's classified.
Nice little loop around right here.
Well, like I said, there's ways to have conversations, and then
Okay.
there's right ways to have conversations, and then there's definitely ways not to have conversation.
But it seems like between the cadre of incredible individuals that you had in this room, that you're like, whoa. In between, I think Bigelow was in there too. In between that and what you were hearing from, in this case, Brazilian counterparts about what happened in Colares,
Right.
this was a huge moment for you where you're like, whoa. So would you mind just explaining when this case was and what allegedly happened and what you were told in that meeting?
Yeah, and let me put this out bluntly. I'm not an expert in the Colares investigation. I wasn't there for the investigation. I was there for one of the if you will, the debriefing, so to speak, from this General Ochoa. It's in a nutshell, without going too far down the rabbit hole. Brazil had been experiencing some UAP issues, and in some cases, these UAP or UFO encounters were disruptive to the local population. And so there's an area in Brazil called Colares, where these incidents became so prevalent that the Brazilian government became involved, and they sent one of their top generals to go, I hate to say it, but to go knock heads, right? Because when things get really out of hand, you send in the military. They wanted to get a control of the situation, see what's really going on. Is this just BS or whatnot? So they sent in their military, and they sent in doctors and other investigators. And the result of which was, that these guys were actually, some of the Brazilian soldiers were injured by UAP. And had experienced the things themselves. And so it wasn't just like sending the military to debrief a bunch of civilians. They were having experiences as well, and some of these individuals were being injured.
Yeah, when you say injuries, what was the scope and what was the evidence they showed you of this?
Sure. Well, it seemed to be primarily the injuries were like some sort of directed energy. Think of like a laser or perhaps a burn where you have a superficial burn. Some folks reported other issues, possibly consistent with directed energy, more internal organ damage. And then some people had some terrifying experiences as reported by them. In some cases, not just being terrified, but potentially even being pursued by these UFOs, by these UAP, which is, by the way, fundamentally different than a lot of the experiences that people may report here in the United States. People here tend to feel they're a little bit more benign. Well, down there, they definitely had the impression these things were not benevolent; they were malevolent. Now, I also want to draw a distinction here. It is certainly possible that some of these injuries were not deliberate. Right? They're just a simple process of the technology. So what I always say is, look, when you go to an airport and you jump on a 737, there's no real threat. But if you go on the tarmac, onto the runway, right, and you go behind the jet engine while it's spooling up, you're now going to, there's a threat, right? It's not intentional, but you're going to get burned. You're probably going to lose your hearing and maybe even worse. It's just a product of the technology. It's a part of the propulsion. It doesn't mean to hurt you. It's just you got too close to it when it was spooling up. So that is also part of the calculus that we try to look at. Say, okay, was this? I know you might feel that it was intentional, but was it really intentional? Right? If I again go out on the road here and I stand in the middle of the road, I'm probably going to get run over by a car. Right? Is that intentional? Probably not.
Yeah.
But I'm at the wrong place at the wrong time. So those are some of the other considerations as well. And always try to keep an open mind. The folks at ATIP always try to keep a very open mind. We actually approach investigations with the exact opposite approach that people think. They came in and said, oh, you guys were trying to investigate UFOs. No, we actually worked our butts off to find prosaic explanations first.
Prosaic explanation.
Prosaic, meaning a normal explanation, right? So, what you're seeing there is actually the contrail of a cruise missile that was being test fired over Vandenberg at this particular date at this particular time. That's not a UFO. Or what you're looking at is those lights on the horizon are actually on the mast of a sailboat. It's over the horizon, but you can see the mast because it's a little bit higher, and that's a navigational light you're seeing, or an anchor light. Or actually, what you're seeing is so.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.